ESPN Wisconsin, and the final of the week. Packed lunch as we continue to talk about all things Packers offseason. Between the OTAs, mandatory minicamp that wrapped up yesterday with some paintball. Excited to be joined today on the final one of the week by the boys from the UnPackPod. We have Nick, Alex, and Zach because, of course, they decided to be a little less formal than everybody else this week, just using the first names. Guys, thank you so much for jumping on to talk little Packers this week.
Yeah,
happy to be here, Gabe.
So let's just go ahead and go around the horn and start with this. When we take a step back, if you want to include everything that's just happened over the last 4 weeks with the practices as well, I want you guys to give me your favorite thing that happened during the offseason and your least favorite thing that happened this offseason.
You want to go first? I'll go first.
You go first.
Let's
do
first.
Clockwise as it appears on the screen.
My favorite thing that happened during the offseason was the tight end excitement that I have now with Musgrave and Kraft.
You're coming for my corner, man. Come on.
That's why I went
That's my
first,
personal
baby.
brand. All right, continue.
That's why I went first. Hey, you can pile on. It's just I know it takes a little bit longer to learn that position coming in as a rookie, and historically Packers rookie tight ends have gotten off to a slow start, but these guys look like they can make an immediate impact, at least from what the beat guys and gals are saying with the offseason stuff. Musgrave looks like a freak athlete, and Kraft seems to fit in as like a security blanket, can impact the offense right off the bat. Let's just hope the learning curve is slower than what it has been in the past. That is what I'm super excited about, because Love is going to need checkdowns. He's going to need draggers. He's going to need something to kind of calm him down, and hopefully those guys can do that for him.
The one thing I would add there, Nick, is just I don't think it's just a Packers thing. I think it's a league-wide thing. I mean, you think about I don't even know why the Lions gave up on TJ Hawkinson and decided to trade him Minnesota. You had Kyle Pitts in Atlanta, granted not the best of quarterback situations down there. But I think even when you take a look at tight ends that are drafted high, eventually they're going to be okay. But other than quarterback, I don't think there's another position where more information is getting thrown at you. And again, my opinion is going to be influenced by Chewy, who I do the show with every day. But just listening to him talk about how much information you have to try to, digest and, okay, my combination blocking here on the run play. Oh, I got to read where the safety is. Do I have to convert this on this sort of, passing play? You're taking offensive line and wide receiver and combining all the knowledge that they have into one position. So there's a lot that needs to be digested. Not to say they can't have good games here and there. I just think tight end as a position in the NFL isn't looked at as, oh man, that's a steep learning curve there.
Yeah. And maybe it's not an immediate impact, but a couple years from now, this could be looked back on as, really impactful first couple draft picks for Goody in this draft. So that would be, that's where the optimism is. I think, the thing I'm least excited about is Joe Barry retained his position as defensive coordinator.
Very fair.
I don't know. I still have no faith.
Well, why would you? He hasn't given you a reason to have any faith. He has been a defensive coordinator in this league now for 6 years, and not one of, his best statistical season was 2 years ago. Like, this was going to be Mina Kimes' top 2 defense. Everybody else thinking top 5, top 10, 17th. 17th across the board last year. And if you look at things like DVOA, even worse.
Yeah. I'm excited about our D-backs. I think this unit with Nixon sort of like coming into form, like who knows what Stokes is going to look like when he comes back or where he fits in, but D-backs are going to be fun. Middle of the defense again is going to be suspect at best. So it's not like they've made these incredible personnel moves to kind of help buoy Barry. So it's this is going to be the big test this year, I would like to think.
Zach, what are you most optimistic about? So I guess your favorite thing, your least favorite thing?
Well, maybe this is a cop-out, but I'm on the air, so let's go. My favorite and least favorite thing at the same time is the same thing, and that is Aaron Rodgers joining the Jets for OTAs and all of their offseason activities. Because at first I was so deeply annoyed by this because to me it was kind of proof positive that in some ways, not in all ways, but in some ways that he was kind of phoning it in for a bit with Green Bay. However, I also love it because it is great content, man. Like, you need a bad guy. He's fully the heel now. And at a time where we'd be trying to like squeeze blood from a stone and talk about like unpadded walkthroughs, like I'm sure we'll talk a bit about here for like a month. Here we are with sports media content blessing. So you take what you can get.
And just showing up literally everywhere in New York. Any big event that's happened in New York, there Aaron Rodgers is for us to be mad at. Especially because he's taking teammates. He's reaching out. He's taking Sauce Gardner places, making his wide receivers jealous that he's taking Sauce Gardner, not him. So
this is the most fun he's had in a long time.
Every media availability, every quote, it's just like chef kiss. I'm both so annoyed and also so happy at the same time.
Alex, least favorite thing of the offseason?
Yeah, I mean, my favorite, I think, is kind of big picture, but I would say it's just this complete tonal shift that exists. It does feel like I'm feeling the summery vibes. The imagery you have up on this packed summer is really kind of how I'm feeling. I feel refreshed. I feel like a black cloud has kind of cleared from the sky a little bit, and it's just that's entirely because of the departure of Aaron Rodgers. To be more specific, I think being able to get the compensation that they did for being able to rid of what I thought has become a really big problem, I'm cool with. Like, so that's my favorite thing, is that it could have been messier. They probably could have come out worse, and I think they did okay. And I think the vibe around the team is now much improved. Like, I don't know. It's refreshed my interest in reading like all these recaps of minicamp, because you're kind of like learning about this group of guys who are all learning about each other, rather than everyone being like, oh, I'm so blessed and honored to play with Aaron, blah, 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 and kind of like floating them up when they're all like scared, what less of, dropping a pass and getting screamed at.
So before you get to your least favorite thing, so this, when you start talking about the vibes, it makes me think of this. And for those who don't know, Alex and I and Nick used to work here at ESPN Milwaukee. Alex and I did a couple of different shows, one of which was a pregame show we called Outside the Pocket before Aaron Rodgers and Jason Wilde would come on the Aaron Rodgers show on Tuesdays back in the day on ESPN Milwaukee. And in 2013, when Aaron Rodgers got hurt and had the broken collarbone, Alex, and this is seared in my brain, said, sometimes it's fun to be desperate, because the Packers were desperate in 2013 and they needed some things to end up going their way to make the playoffs. I remember watching a game with Alex. I think Justin Tucker hit a long ass field, like a 50 some plus yard field goal on a Monday night game to defeat the Lions that helped the Packers. And that just kind of imbibed like, hey, we were watching a different game in desperation. And sometimes it was fun to be desperate. Now the vibes are different for this Packers. I don't want to say they're desperate, but what would you say those are? Because I understand what you're saying. It's a young team. And if they take the right steps this year, it can be a young team that can be fun to watch grow together.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the vibes are more, they feel like they're a little bit more of a collective. They feel like the expectations have lessened, which I think will benefit the youth on the team, because I think as young players stepping into a situation where there's a lot expected of you and you're supposed to be a Super Bowl contender, yeah, that could be exciting, but it could also be pretty daunting. I mean, these guys are 21, 22 years old. So that's how I would summarize it. And yeah, like if it means that we're watching a Monday Night Football game with the Ravens, like we were at our colleague Ryan Wood's house, shout out Ryan Wood, wherever you are in the world these days, watching Justin Tucker nail field goals, and that's like, sending us into euphoria, so be it. That's awesome. That's funny that you remember that. I think I referenced Batman in that the Dark Knight in that too, and that's exactly how I feel. Like I remember when Bane makes Batman watch Gotham burning, and he's like, there could be no true hope without despair. But there also can't really be that much joy without it either. And that's kind of how I feel.
Getting really deep on a Friday. During packed lunch.
I like that you're the anti-hero in this scenario.
No. I mean, man, I don't know. Yeah, what do you guys think? I don't know. What are your vibes of this?
Like, again, I agree with you where I look at the team and I think it could have a really young, fun core that we could, just absolutely cling to as we continue to move forward. So whether that's, again, Jordan Love growing with Dobbs and Watson and Kraft and Musgrave and having that kind of core grow together. And then even on the defensive side with like Quay Walker and Van Ness and Gary, like there's some intriguing talent on both sides. That being said, when I keep hearing, people try to say, oh, this Packers team, it has talent, it has talent, it has talent. Okay, sure, but a lot of it's unproven talent. And they need to like start showing those steps to grow this year. Like I'm not judging this year by wins and losses. I don't know how you guys feel. I'm judging by when we reach week 17 and 18, do I feel that the franchise and this roster is heading in the right direction?
Yeah. Can I add one question, if I may, Gabe, to
Go for it.
General audience or panel here? Do we think that this kind of weird sense of liberation that some of us are feeling is shared by Matt LaFleur? Because I'm also excited to learn more about him. We talked about this, I think, when we did this before the offseason, when the season ended, like that bit of a weight off of his shoulders as well.
Maybe, but I also, sources say that he really wanted Rodgers back. That was his preference, and he was the only one from coach on up into the front office president. He was the only one who really, really wanted Rodgers back. So that's the only caveat I would give there. But you would think that he would feel a little bit. He was asked about this recently. I thought did a good job of kind of sidestepping it. Was asked about being able to like run his system now. The implication being that he was running the Rodgers system before and he sidestepped it, but some of that has to be true, right?
Yeah. Well, here's what LaFleur has to, be facing it with his reality is now that little security blanket or that guard is taken away and it is LaFleur's system, so vulnerable to whatever, criticism comes his way. He doesn't have the overhanging rod, whatever it is.
He looms large.
Yeah. So I will say this, because I feel that LaFleur, like, oh, we're going to find out how good of a coach LaFleur is now, just diminishes what he did the first handful of years here in Green Bay. The job is different now. And the job is developing this young talent. When he came in, the job was, can you get the best out of Aaron Rodgers? And the answer was, yes, he can. He was able to get 2 MVPs out of Rodgers. And a lot of that credit still belongs to Aaron. But at the same time, the last 2 years under McCarthy, things had gotten stale. Obviously, Rodgers has gotten bored. And you needed that shift. Like when McCarthy came in with Brett Favre. Like I think there was some invigoration there with LaFleur to Rodgers. It ended up running its natural course, and now Aaron isn't here. But now the job is different because you had some veterans when you initially came in. Now it's a younger roster with 3 players currently at the age 30 or older. So it's just a different job. We'll find out if LaFleur is a good coach in this situation of, okay, can you bring these guys up? Can you start building this roster and getting it to point in the right direction?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's to, I guess, everyone's point, sort of, that's the excitement, right? I feel so much more invigorated coming into this season where I don't even know if it's desperation, but it's just like the uncertainty. The uncertainty is so fun to look forward to.
Yeah, that's the word I was going to use. Alex, you said despair. I was going to jump in and say I would call it uncertainty, not despair.
Well, for some people it is despair because maybe they don't believe in Jordan Love.
We've had a pretty cushy last couple decades.
Yeah, 30 years or so where, the Hall of Fame quarterbacks have been. But again, it was kind of the same feeling that you had probably in 2008 as a Packers fan. The only difference is you had a little bit more maybe of an idea of Aaron because of the way he flashed in that Dallas game in 2007. And that was just completely different than the flash of 10 snaps that we saw for Jordan Love in the Eagles game last year. So I think, but again, that's where the excitement comes along of everybody trying to develop. The other big story, I guess, that came out of this week was Jair Alexander doing things in Jair's way. And I feel that Jair deserves some criticism, not as much as Aaron Rodgers, because quarterback is different than corner. But when there's clearly a disconnect between your best defensive player and the defensive coordinator, and that defensive coordinator is still there, like this is the time where you're trying to get on the same page. And the way the season started for the defensive backfield last year, I feel like Jair being there would have been important. Now, can they still get on the same page? Absolutely. Is it that big of a deal? Maybe a little bit, but it just kind of, I would have preferred Jair to be there during the non-mandatory part. And then it's a bad look when you're like, yeah, $700,000 isn't enough for me to show up for 3 weeks. Like it's just a bad look. Whether or not it's true or not, it just looks bad.
I will say though, in terms of getting on the same page, I feel like the defense, correct me if I'm wrong, if my memory is incorrect, the defense got better last year when Joe Barry got on the Jair Alexander page. He's the page you need to get on.
That's the way it seemed, for sure.
So
yes,
that's where I'm at.
I agree. I was going to say there was a point last season during our podcast, Zach, that you said that Jair Alexander was quiet quitting because he was going so rogue, and actually he started to play better by either, forcing the system's hand to play.
I'll say to use more corporate jargon. I'm going to correct the record. He's not quiet quitting. He was managing up. That's what he was doing. He was managing.
Okay. I like. There we go. A 6-7 month delayed edit. Good shout. And I heard you talking about this earlier this week with Justice, our colleague and semi-corporate overlord, on Monday. Talking about like how this would not be the case if it were, Bill Belichick and how he adjusts the system. Like, I don't know. I'm torn because I think there are other ways that you can get your point across, but like the point that I feel like he's trying to get across is one that I feel like I agree with. So it's very hard for me to come down on him.
Well, again, like you have this guy who's been all pro, really good lockdown corner who wants to follow people, and you're like, nope. This is the way I do things.
But he did it well. Like, that's what I understand. Like, you gave him an opportunity and he passed the test with flying colors. So yeah. So what are we doing here? What was the point of that? I mean, that was one of the best.
Well, and then you have Joe Barry stepping up to the podium at one point this offseason going, yeah, we don't have time to mess around for 10 weeks. Like, dude.
Yeah, you were the one messing around, homie.
Yeah, exactly. He's talking about himself. That's
We're trying to find the guy who did this. Yeah,
exactly. It was hot dog guy for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's the frustrating part when it comes to Joe Barry. That's the frustrating part. And I think that's the defense to me is going to the offense and Matt LaFleur are going to have, I think, a long leash, because the one thing I think that Jordan Love has going for him that Aaron Rodgers didn't is people I think are more understanding. Like Aaron Rodgers had to deal with people booing him at training camp because he wasn't Brett Favre. I feel most Packer fans, well, yes, there are some that probably wanted Aaron Rodgers back, understand kind of everything that went on, and they're excited for Jordan Love to have the opportunity he is. I would be shocked if Jordan Love is booed during training camp when fans are showing up for it. And I feel that people are going to be patient with him. The defense, on the other hand, I don't think there's any room for patience given the amount of draft picks and money they have sunk into that defense.
I know we're talking about a different thing and we're talking about patience, but I want to say that's a really good point. And I think that is one area, because sometimes I feel like we can skew very negative about our now, fellow New Yorker, Nick. I think some of that is to Aaron's credit. I really do. And I think that with all the shade he might throw at the front office and things like that, I thought his like parting of ways with the fans and the rest of the organization was very graceful. And I might be wrong, but I don't think he would be like lining up to play for the Vikings or Bears or Lions anytime soon. Like, I actually think that's the difference, right? Like, there's not this like spite that he, this bad taste in his mouth necessarily. I mean, there is, but like it's he's not like leading with that. I think he's leading with the excitement he has with the Jets. Nick's like,
I don't know,
moving his head around. He clearly disagrees, but like, I mean, seriously, like Favre created that toxic environment
100%.
that allowed the fans to be booing Aaron Rodgers. Like,
and of all the PR missteps that Aaron Rodgers has probably had over the last 18 months, the one good thing he did was being graceful with the fans.
I mean, his goodbye post, like, I had the feels and I wanted him gone so badly. Like, I mean,
Zach and I both rushed to our group thread to be like, Alex, if you want to have disdain for Rodgers, don't read this. If you want to keep your disdain, because it was graceful, but and it was poetic and it was nice, heartwarming. But his PR is so much better than Favre's could ever dream of being.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's heartwarming. It's nice. Was it at all disingenuous, though? I mean, he's mentioning Brian Gutekunst. He's mentioning Russ Ball, people that we know that they had problems with.
We don't have to dive too deep in it. Apparently, he didn't have a problem with Russ Ball. Like, we go from Aaron Rodgers probably not wanting Russ Ball to be the general manager, and that's how Brian Gutekunst ends up coming in, to, yeah, Russ Ball's the one guy who changed when I was there. Like, Russ Ball somehow becoming a guy that Aaron Rodgers didn't have a problem with. I did not see that coming.
Yeah.
Yet here we are in terms of the Aaron Rodgers exit. Yes, it was disingenuous, but yeah, whatever. I think
better to go out on disingenuous good terms than be an a-hole.
How many of those goodbye posts that professional athletes put out there for the city, the fans, the team are disingenuous? 95% of them, right?
A great deal of them.
Yes.
It's like anything else posted on social media. It's
That's
like
fair.
I'm about to rack up a couple 100,000 likes. That's what that is. Millions probably. I don't know where that post is at right now.
So let's go ahead and talk about expectations. Now that we've gone through everything in the offseason, we're now looking forward to training camp, which is 5-6 weeks away in the later part of July. What do you guys look at as realistic expectations for the 2024 Green Bay Packers?
So I think the easiest way to do it, just overarching, is where the Vegas line for wins and losses is, which is 7.5. And I think that's about right. I think I don't know. Maybe this is just too excited moving forward, but I really do genuinely believe this Packers team should get to 8 wins. It should. That's what I think. That's my.
I don't know about should. Just because, again, you look at the defense and there's a lot of good things on the defense. But I feel for the defense to actually improve outside of Jair Alexander, and I've said this all week, every other player on that depth chart has an if next to their name in terms of being so, and not all those ifs are going to come true. And the offense, and John Anderson made this point earlier this week here on Packed Lunch of, the quarterback you're replacing, Aaron Rodgers didn't throw for 300 yards last year. Like the quarterback that you're actually replacing in terms of the production he had last year wasn't the 4-time MVP, wasn't the Hall of Famer. It was average, quarterback production. That being said, you also lost, he's not a wide receiver one, but you lost your top receiver from last year. You're asking a lot from young players to step into shoes of veterans that are no longer there, tight ends, wide receivers, potentially other guys along the offensive line, that it's more than just, we're subbing out Jordan Love for Aaron Rodgers, and that's going to be easy. No, there's some other moving parts to that offense that I still have a lot of questions about.
But what if?
I'll say, but what if?
But what if? No, go ahead, Zach.
Always the optimist. Rather than going the line and wins and losses, because I'm a narrative guy, I'll say that my expectation is probably not the worst team in the division. That's my expectation.
Yeah.
Someone will end up being worse. Gabe,
that place is reserved for the Bears in totality.
I hope so, because their fans are talking some trash right now.
Yeah.
No, their players are talking trash.
Yeah.
Isn't it so amazing? Like us losing Aaron Rodgers doesn't just mean that you I mean, I guess it kind of improves you, but it's like it's like every other team in the division's biggest offseason move was Aaron Rodgers now plays for the Jets. Like, what does that say about you? I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, in terms of the division, we could talk about that for a second, I guess. I mean, the division. The NFC North and the NFC East are probably going to be, not the NFC East, the NFC South are probably going to be the 2 worst divisions in football. The division's bad. Like, the Vikings are, I think, rebuilding because you have your quarterback saying, yeah, I'm probably not going to be here past this year, not expecting any sort of contract extension. You lost your wide receiver too. You traded away Zadarius Smith. You're looking at trading away Danielle Hunter. Like, it seems like they're getting rid of a lot of, you cut Dalvin Cook. It seems like they're starting to trend in a different direction. So they're going through a rebuild. Packers are going through a rebuild, even if they don't want to admit it. The Bears are presumably on the uptick of their rebuild because they had all the money. They spent it. They had some good draft picks, yada, yada, yada. And then you have the Lions, who everyone thinks is going to win the division. But, oh, by the way, they're dealing with a gambling scandal. So, like this, and Jared Goff's their quarterback. So, the entire division is just one big question mark.
Yeah. Which is why I think if we're talking expectations, and we're talking 7.5, like I'm not, my hesitation to go over that is not about the offense. And I think part of that is also, I know that there's a lot more than just Aaron Rodgers to replace, But part of that is I have way more faith in Matt LaFleur to coach around that than I do in Joe Barry to coach around the holes that exist on this team on the other side of the ball. Kind of like a sub least favorite thing of the offseason position that was already really weak at safety got weaker, or at least is just the same.
At best, it's the same.
At best is the same, and that the interior of the defensive line is still a massive question mark. So, I think there will be struggles this year, and I think a lot of it will come from that. And that's tough. It's a tough place to put Jordan Love in, because this feels to me like a team that is not built to be a shootout, come from behind team. No. We're tight end heavy and young tight end heavy. We're run heavy. We are not perimeter strong, not experienced in those areas. And now I'm I'm talking myself down here. I'm like,
well, no.
Did I just say over?
Despair.
I will say this to anybody in the NFC North, any fans in the NFC North. If you think your team is winning the division just because everybody else is bad, that's not a good enough reason to think you're going to win the division. And the reason why I say that is, and to hit maybe a little bit closer home here in the state of Wisconsin, every time, and I know they're getting rid of divisions in the Big Ten, but every time the Wisconsin Badger football team was picked to finish just because the rest of the division was bad, the rest of the division is bad, I guess it has to be Wisconsin. Wisconsin doesn't end up winning because they're also bad. I don't have a prediction for this division because it is so bad. Eventually somebody is going to step up. I don't know who, but the entire division is bad. And I don't predict because you think your team is good. Don't predict because the rest of the division is bad is my point.
Yeah. So let's do it this way. The wins and losses is too black and white. Admittedly, you have no idea how things are going to shake out with injuries and anything else throughout the rest of this season. So I guess the best case scenario expectation wise is if this offense, Jordan Love, wide receivers, and, everyone else included, plays loose. And if Romeo Doubs doesn't have that, I don't know, the kind of nervous energy that you could kind of see from him throughout last season, but it was because, Rodgers was staring laser beams through him. I just think if the team plays fun, there's more RPOs. You see an offense that hasn't, that's not hamstrung by Rodgers' mobility, and they can just do some exciting new stuff. And they're building toward the future. That's what I am going to get excited about. I think that translates into some close wins too, because it's just different looks, and LaFleur can let loose a little bit more. That would be fun.
Do you think Doubs is wide receiver one? Because I know the entire fan base is excited about Christian Watson because of the physical skill set he has and the speed. Let's be honest. It's all about the speed for him. But it's been Doubs who has gotten a lot of the press in terms of the connection he may have with Jordan Love. Who's wide receiver one?
I don't know that it matters, right? I think Christian Watson is still game-breaking wide receiver one who's going to probably lead the team in touchdowns and yards, but Doubs is probably going to be that security blanket if there is that connection, and is going to be more of the possession receiver who gets more targets and maybe more catches. So it's 1 and 1A. I would probably still say Christian Watson's wide receiver one, but I don't know that it matters necessarily. I don't know what you guys think.
I think Gabe wants a headline, man. Come on, pick one.
Yeah,
I'll say I'll still say Watson.
I mean, I was hoping for a hot take out of Nick. He's got nothing. Yeah. Zach, on to you. What do you got?
Nick on a Friday.
I mean, here's Doubs, I think long term feels like that guy to me. I have hope in two more seasons maybe. This coming season, I'm not sure there is, I'm going to fall back on Nick's point. I'm not sure there is a wide receiver one, but also, that's not how the LaFleur, the Shanahan tree offense is built anyway. So it's kind of a moot point. Take
all
that.
Right, no hot takes from Zach. Alex, what you got? Give me something hot there.
Let's go. Wide receiver one is not on the roster currently. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, if I had to pick, let's just put it this way: it's 3rd and 5. Who's getting the ball?
Yes,
Aaron
Jones.
Jones.
A great way to look at it.
Aaron Jones is your wide receiver one. That's a hot take. There you go.
See, I like that. See, Alex is at least getting creative.
And what will happen instead is that it'll be like, some strict rep count, and AJ Dillon will be on the field and he'll be blocking, and it'll just all crumble. But in the meantime, let's give it to Aaron Jones. He's bought into the Love era. Love that about him. He's working in the offseason with these guys. Like, I respect that. I think he's willing to reward us for the contract that the team rewarded him with. So I'm all aboard the Aaron Jones train.
Will Matt LaFleur use Aaron Jones in a way where the fan base isn't revolting after every game, clamoring for more touches for Aaron Jones?
I think he has to, right?
We said that all of last season, baby. Week by week, he has to, right?
Or he doesn't have to.
Or he doesn't.
And part of that, I think, is obviously Aaron, right? Like, in every coach since the beginning of time has always said, oh, we want to run the football more. I doubt that. I think that 99% of the coaches actually don't want to run the football. They want to throw it. And when you have Aaron Rodgers, it's an awful tempting thing to do, to constantly throw the football. But with Jordan Love and trying to help him out and make the play action passing game a little more useful this year, I think, for Jordan Love, I think that they actually do have to run the ball a little bit more. This is the one time that a coach may actually run the football more based on the circumstances that have been presented to them.
Yeah, or screens and short passes. That's why you got all those tight ends.
Yeah. I mean, just getting the ball into Aaron Jones' hands in space and doing a lot of different creative things. I think that certainly is the Aaron Jones is a piece you can use creatively. And I guess I have hope that LaFleur can figure that out versus some of the creative, to bring Joe Barry back into it. I think there are potential for some creative things defensively between Van Ness, between Quay Walker, and seeing as how Joe Barry struggles to run just his base stuff, I have doubts that he can be creative to get some of the interesting chess pieces he now has that Gutekunst has drafted for him involved in different ways.
Yeah.
Last thing on the wide receivers is I don't think we mentioned Jaden Reed or dark horse undrafted rookie Malik Heath, who seems to be making some making some.
Heath's making waves. Alex, it's a name to learn before preseason. You're like, what is a Heath?
I'll study up on that before our show's guy draft.
Well, okay, I'll throw this out there for wide receivers, because this has been probably one of the things that's bothered me most about this offseason is not having any sort of veteran pass catcher.
Yeah,
I think it's inexcusable. You need to have. I've made this point all week as well, and I've talked with Chewy about it, where Brett had Sterling Sharp. And yes, then he was still able to grow with Robert Brooks and Chewy. And then when Free came in, and then they were able to grow that way. Aaron Rodgers came in, he had Donald Driver. Yep. Then he still continued to grow with Greg Jennings and Jordy Nelson, at all those receivers that came in. Not having some sort of veteran to help the development of the wide receivers. I'm not even talking about taking snaps away, but just to help the development and having some sort of veteran presence in those rooms, to me, is inexcusable. And it makes me a little bit worried about, okay, we're all in now on a 2nd and 4th round draft pick from last year, completely developing both together as being the top 2 receivers for this franchise going forward. The odds of that actually happening, to me, seem pretty low, that both those guys are going to continue to develop and end up being legitimate number 1s and number 2s in the NFL.
Well, there's still some time to possibly find someone on a vet minimum, but let's not ignore the fact that we are in now a 2-year window where the Packers have zero money to spend. It's not even about can they bring in this guy, bring in that guy. They can't bring anybody in. It's just not possible. Don't have the money.
Yeah, that's a major part of it. And honestly, when people were talking about, for a similar reason, Mercedes Lewis maybe even being brought back to Green Bay, it was a similar thing, right? You have this group of talented young guys, you expect them to develop, but you still need someone to bridge the gap, or just a nice voice to be hey guys, it's going to be okay in the huddle, that you could actually believe, because he's actually
a huddle dad.
Been there.
Huddle dad.
Yeah, you need a huddle. Exactly. You need a huddle dad. This is a Pop Warner team that's got no dads coaching it. Come on, somebody's got to steady the ship here.
Can we start a GoFundMe to get Big Dog back?
Yeah,
get a huddle dad. I mean, I don't know how much that helps the receivers, maybe to a degree, but someone what's the wide receiver equivalent of Mercedes Lewis right now in the NFL?
I have no idea. It was
have to do a deep dive
last year. That didn't work.
That's
but again, like just having that guy there, not even from a player, like they were expecting something. Any veteran they would bring in, I'm not expecting a ton out of. I just want from a veteran presence standpoint, because I think it's just easier to help your development if that person is there. Because right now, I believe the oldest receiver that they have is Jeff Cotton at 26 years old. I believe that's the oldest wide receiver on the roster.
That's absolutely insane. You're right though. Just out of fairness to Jordan Love, I feel like it would be the right thing to do, because Donald drivers don't necessarily grow on trees for every organization, but that was so pivotal, I believe, and he was the huddle dad for the young Jordy Nelsons, and then Randall Cobbs, and Greg Jennings was like the rogue uncle, I guess.
Is this going to be a new thing on the UnPackPod, the huddle dad? Like you guys are going to be...
Well, we got to find one first.
Yeah. Well, our search for our huddle dad is going to be
hashtag huddle dad. Let's do it.
Put it out there.
We got huddle dad
One
issues.
Huddle dad.
Yeah, we do have huddle dad issues. or we just got to hope that Jair Alexander bullying all the wide receivers hardens them enough to grow throughout the season.
Yeah, I love that he's not giving them any breaks, and I'm sure
he's got one gear, man. Like that's all he's got. The dude's got one gear, and it's just to go hard. He's not gonna lay back on anybody.
That's what they're saying about Keyshawn Nixon too. Just full speed, no matter what.
Get one spot. Where can we find you guys? What do you guys typically do in terms of the UnPackPod? How often does it come out? Where can people find it?
In season. We are every week, usually on Thursdays. It kind of there's a bunch of podcasts in the Acme Packing Company podcast feed, and so it's usually on Thursdays, sometimes on Wednesdays. Follow us on Twitter at the UnPackPod. Anywhere you get your podcasts, Acme Packing Company is the feed, and we are one of many wonderful shows in there as well, with Justice Moscato, who you had on earlier this week, and a bunch of other smart people, and then me.
Then there's us.
And then there's the UnPackPod. Gentlemen, thank you so much for jumping on. Certainly appreciate it. Love talking Packers. Hopefully we get to do it again soon.
Thanks, Gabe.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And that'll do it for Packed Lunch this week. But don't worry, our Packed Summer will continue here on ESPN Wisconsin. A couple other podcasts that are going to be coming your way later this summer, all revolving around the green and gold. Thanks for tuning in this week during Packed Lunch on ESPN Wisconsin.